Hello, yes, and welcome to episode 2 of the Irish Abroad show with myself, Gerard Brown, and once again delighted to be joined by Paul Tierney here on Irish Football Fan TV. Paul, first things first, how are yourself? Unlike me, you didn't get around to a game last weekend in the FAI Cup, but I'm sure you've seen all that went on, which is some incredible ties, including the one that I was at in Athlone.
Yeah, definitely some scenes from yourself as well, Jer. Fair play to
Yeah.
you. That's the most raw reaction I've ever. Well, besides maybe Chris Kamara on Gillette Soccer Special, it was that close to it. But no, fair play. So some action as well, and sure that's the cup. It's always fantastic. So no surprises.
Yeah, as I said in the group chat afterwards on Saturday morning, I'm not doing league matches anymore. I only can do a drama and excitement like that, like what the cup can bring up as well. I was just actually thinking when you mentioned Sky Sports News, just when I was kind of watching back my reaction, very similar to, I can't remember the reporter's name, but you remember your man that was doing the Watford Leicester game, the playoff game in 2013 when Knockaert missed the penalty, Gini went down to the range, kind of just that kind of way. It's one of those as well, as you say, like raw reaction. You get caught up in the events of everything that's going on with the crowd noise. So when I watched it back afterwards, like, Christ, I was really, really loud. But sure, look, it's all part of the beauty of live football, and you just can't beat it. But we've a good show coming up with you today. Unfortunately, as much as we tried during the week, we couldn't get an interview sort of this week. But we are working hard and even trying to get one for next week. We've seen some great comments coming in from last week and trying to get interviews, and we are actually going to work on them. We are willing to take on any feedback that comes on the comments and kick on with that. But we're just going to go on with our weekly roundup. That would be kind of the first part of the show. Irish players playing the MLS in Scotland, and of course, as we've touched on, as we're going to touch on as well, there's players now obviously playing in the likes of the Belgian and Swedish leagues are up and running as well. And then for part 2 with the SPFL or the Scottish Premier League, whatever it's Scottish Premiership, whatever it's called now, being starting back this weekend. We're going to look at a couple of players that got forced away into a couple of the Ireland squads, whether it be on the 21 level or senior level over the course of the season. But let's start with the weekly roundup, Paul, and I suppose we'll actually start with across the water and across the Atlantic in the MLS in America. Not a good week for the Irish contingent there. All players involved actually lost with their respective sides. Probably the most surprising was Derek Williams, because he's flying high with LA Galaxy in the Western Conference, but they suffered a surprise 4-0 defeat away to Dallas at the weekend, or FC Dallas. Very much a surprise because they're third in the table in the Western Conference, 7 points off leader Seattle Sounders. He did play the full 90 minutes in that game. Jake Moraney, he came off in the 32nd minute during Atalanta's 1-0 home defeat to Columbus Crew. I did see stuff afterwards on social media, and their interim manager at Atalanta, Rob Valentino, did say that he is a doubt for the weekend game against Orlando. So it does very much look like it was an injury that forced Jake to come off just past the half-hour mark in that game. Disappointing defeat for Atlanta, losing at home. They've had a pretty mixed season so far. They're 10th in the table on 14 points, a good 8 points off them playoff spots. And John Gallagher came on for the last 34 minutes of Austin FC's 1-0 home defeat to them league leader Seattle Sounders. Of course, this is a name that might not be that overly familiar with some people compared to the likes of Jake Moraney and Derek Williams, who've had international involvement in Ireland before at various age groups. So I might just give you a bit of a background on John. He's 25 years of age. He comes from Dundalk. He played U-team football with Home Farm. He then moved on to play college football in America with Notre Dame Fighting Irish from 2014 to 2017, before his professional career then kick-started in 2018 when he signed to Atlanta United. But spent most of the time there in their second team, or the B team, only making 16 appearances for the first team across 2 or 3 seasons, scoring 4 goals. Went on loan to Aberdeen for the 2019-2020 season, scored twice in 22 appearances, including a goal against Rangers, which always will go down well with Irish people. And then, of course, in the off-season, he has moved to Austin, who are having a tough time at the moment. They're bottom of the Western Conference on 13 points, but he has made 12 appearances with 2 goals and 1 assist. He seems to be kind of a Ferrari kind of player. He does seem to be playing more in attacking position for Austin FC this season, but can play in midfield, can play in right back. Just in general, anything you want to add there, Paul? Or would you have actually been quite familiar with John before I gave a good background information on him there?
Yeah, I would have known the name, obviously, from Aberdeen, and if he scored against Rangers, you would have heard about it on the likes of Sky Sports News, would have heard about it on, everything. No, I wouldn't have known him that much, but look, I mean, a lot of us don't really watch the MLS, but still, it's still a career, and it's it's a league that's growing all the time as well. So look, fair play to him as well. I actually, one fella you forgot to mention was Shane O'Neill. He's a defender for Seattle Sounders. He came on as a sub in a 3-1 defeat to Sporting Kansas City as well. Now, I'm not 100% on his background and all, but look, it's an Irish player playing in America, and it's always an interest for us as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, he's playing with Seattle Sounders. As I touched up there on my report, they're flying it this season. They are the league leaders of their Western Conference and going very, very strong. It's kind of touched on there. I was something I'm going to say, like the MLS, like a lot of American sports, is something I really kind of want to get into. I've been meaning for years to try and get into the NBA because I do like basketball. For a while, I followed the NFL more so, just kind of kept up to date with results and stuff like that. But I just find it very, nothing against the MLS, I just find it very, very difficult just to kind of follow it, predominantly due to the time zone. Now, I do know a lot of games sometimes do kick off at 8 p.m., 10 p.m. Irish time, but more often than not, most games are after midnight. It was competing with the European Championships during the summer. It's now going to be competing with the Premier League in a couple of weeks. I have interest in other sports as well. I have a bit of a life outside of following sports, so it is kind of hard to keep up with. Would you be a bit more dedicated to the MLS than myself?
No, definitely not. I don't know what it is. I think the whole idea of no relegation for me is kind of a bit of a, I know it's in the other sports in America as well. I just, like, what's the point really? We're guaranteed staying here. We may as well finish 10th. It doesn't really make much sense to me. But look, I mean, if it's on some night and I'm bored, I'd have a look at it, especially if there's an Irish player involved. So, we'll keep an eye on it anyway. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I think the culture of American sport you touched on there with no relegation, it's so different as well. It's like with the franchise kind of sports, it's their kind of mark. And they would look at themselves and, Britain and European culture and think that's just weird. Like, where's the stability, where's the chance to progress and everything else like that. But as you say, like, you could be looking at someone like Austin, like, yeah, the bottom of the league, but like, where's the motivation coming in the season that kind of keeps going, where you take, for instance, here at home at the moment, while Longford, while they are maybe a good bit of cut drift at the bottom, they still have something to play for because they know they can at least get that relegation playoff. So I much prefer that kind of culture where you get rewarded, and if you do bad, you get your punishment and you have to start building again, where mediocrity can kick in quite a lot in America. We're going to move on to Scotland, and if you actually have a good bit here, I'll let you take away with everything that's been going on in the Scottish League. The group stages came to a conclusion there over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. So in Scotland, we'll start with St Mirren again. Jamie McGrath and Joe Shaughnessy both on the score sheet against Partick Thistle. St Mirren won their League Cup Group H, and they'll play Jays Cavia's Livingston in the next round. Speaking of Jays Cavia, he came on as a sub for Livingston and set up Craig Sibbald's goal in a 3-1 win over Cowdenbeath, which put them through to the last 16 also. Aaron McEneff was an unused sub in Hearts' 1-0 win against Inverness Cally Thistle. He hasn't been getting in recently, but as we spoke about last week as well, Hearts are probably one of the stronger sides who started off in that competition and will be one of the stronger sides in that division as well this year. So hope he will get opportunities as the season goes on. And as we mentioned last week as well, Killian Sheridan, he joined Dundee. He made his debut on Saturday. He came on in a 5-2 win against Forfar, and they also got through as well. Got some good players there, the likes of Charlie Adam too, which is good to see. And maybe Dundee will be a bit of a force in the league this year as well, after coming up via the relegation playoff. And finally, our man Darragh O'Connor last week, we'll speak about him twice. He played the full 90 in both defeat to Airdrieonians and a win against Annan for Motherwell. They will play Dundee in the next round as well. We were talking about last week in the group chat that maybe we had jinxed them a little bit after talking to them. They went up and lost the derby to Airdrieonians. But look, they've got through, and that's the main thing. And look, they're playing Dundee in the next round, a couple of Irish involved there too, so it should be an interesting encounter. Yeah,
a bit of an Irish derby. As you touched on there, as we mentioned last week, despite the fact the show went out on Thursday, we actually recorded that interview with Darragh on Wednesday before the game, and as we said, at least they thankfully made amends for it on Saturday and got the result and got through. Yeah, just the main thing I kind of want to touch down there, because I took down from my notes as well, is Jamie McGrath and Joe Shaughnessy. Obviously, Jamie had a fantastic season last year, 17 goals across all competitions. St Mirren, had a fantastic league season, fantastic in the cup competitions, getting to the last 4 in both of them. And obviously Joe Shaughnessy as well. I think it kind of went under the radar a little bit, not just kind of last season, obviously because of Jamie McGrath's heroics at St Mirren, but how well he's been performing in the Scottish League over the last couple of years. Prior to that with St Johnson, he's now the captain of St Mirren. Got that goal last week as well. probably won't feature too much in the Irish setup because we're heavily stacked with centre backs. But it is good to see St. Mirren have hit the ground running straight away, and they're going to be carrying a lot of momentum going into the start of the new season. I'm not quite sure who they play the weekend, but we'll have a look at that when we touch on part 2.
Yeah, I think they actually play Dundee away first. So again, it's probably a team who'll be in and around the same position as them. So, again, a lot of the start of the season just depends on who's the fittest, really, and then teams kind of grow into it as it goes on. So, look, hopefully another good season for them because they've become very liked amongst the Irish population, the Irish football supporters population anyway. So, long may it continue.
Yeah, I think I like the way that you phrased there, the football population. As I touched on last week as well, they probably have become everyone's second favourite Scottish team on this island. Obviously, touched on there as well, like Colin McCarthy, Charles Dunn is there as well, another Irish player and the manager, obviously, of course, former Ireland international, Jim Goodwin as well. Just 2 more things we want to touch on before we wrap it up as well. The Belgian Super League was back last weekend. Obviously, Josh Cullen had a fantastic debut season last season. Anderlecht helping them get European football, but it was a very bad start to the new season for Vincent Kompany's side. They suffered a 3-1 home defeat against St. Gilloise. Josh Cullen actually played the full 90 minutes in that game. A bit of a surprise defeat for them, but they'll be hoping to make amends this weekend with their second fixture of the season against European, I think that's how you pronounce it, on Saturday. And then finally, one lad that we touched on last week as well, Zach El-Bazehi, of course, who's completed his move from Lincoln to the Swedish Premier Division side, AIK. He had slightly better fortunes last week, despite the fact he only came on as a sub for the last 34 minutes. But AIK got a 1-1 draw away to Obro, and that result leaves them in 5th place after 12 games. Of course, it's mid-season, similar to here at the moment. They are a good 8 points off top spot, but they are only 2 points off the European spots, and they are back in action again this week at home to Hamelstead on Monday, in fact, the bank holiday. So that gives you something to do on a bank holiday Monday if you can access Swedish football for a 6 p.m. kickoff time. Just before we finish up there on part 1, anything you'd like to add, Paul?
Yeah, just a brief one. I know we don't talk about England as much. I know there's only friendlies on at the minute, but Shane Long did get a goal in a 1-1 draw against Fulham on the weekend, and Michael Obafemi set him up as well. So I know, listen, this is only a friendly. It's before the start of the season, but obviously we'd like the two of them to be involved a bit more, particularly Obafemi, who didn't really get an opportunity at all last year, especially after doing so well after the league did come back the year before after when they were allowed to come back when COVID kind of
project restart
down a little bit. Yeah. So look, it's news anyway, and it's always good to see Shane Long scoring.
It is, especially.
Yeah,
they always have a fun place in our heart. Yeah, pre-season, it's one of them I didn't kind of dive into too much because there's just so many games going on at the moment. Even seen again last night, like Spurs were in action. They had a comfortable 3-1 victory away against NK Dongs. Matt Doherty, I think, played over an hour of that game. Troy Parrott came on for the last kind of couple of minutes of that one. So that's where we're going to wrap it up for part 1. But as always, as I said in the comments there, don't be afraid to let us know about anyone else out there that we've forgotten about. It doesn't matter what league it is. I know there's a lot of Asian football, particularly on at the moment as well. You know, if there's any out there, don't be shy and let us know. And we'll try and include it in our roundup section next week. We're always looking to broaden our horizons here on the Irish Abroad show. But we're going to move on now to part 2. And as we touched on there in our intro, the SPL, or the Scottish Premiership, is back this weekend. Full round of games. Just might call out the fixtures first. So on Saturday, live on Sky TV, Rangers face Livingston. As I mentioned, Jay Kazib will be involved in that game. A bit of an Irish derby was touched on there. Dundee versus St. Mirren. Then you've got Ross County versus St. Johnson there at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Then the game I suppose a lot of people will be interested in watching on Saturday evening at 8 o'clock is Hearts' first game back up against Celtic. Should be a good one. Celtic, obviously, let's be brutally honest, they left progression in the Champions League behind them against Midtjylland last night. They should have won that game in normal time, but were well punished then in extra time. And then a couple of games on Sunday. Aberdeen host Dundee United, and Motherwell face Hibernian. And remember, of course, Dara O'Connor, who was on with us last week. That game is also live on Sky, so a good chance to see young Dara in action there. So we're also going to do a little bit of a feature here, maybe look at some of the players that Irish players are involved in this league that might force their way into whether it's Jim Crawford's squad in the next kind of couple of weeks for the September games, or Stephen Kenny's kind of or Stephen Kenny's squad as well for that triple header once again in September. I might let you take the lead here first, Paul. And who are you kind of instantly looking at?
Well, I don't think you can start anywhere else but Jamie McGrath. Obviously, he had a great season last year. 45 appearances, 17 goals in all competitions. He's played 3 times in the League Cup this season, and he's already got 1 goal with the league to start this weekend. St. Mirren are obviously through again in that competition as well. I think with Jason Knight now being out due to unfortunate circumstances, I think we need the midfield will have to change. Someone else would have to come in his position, and someone else will have to come in a further position as well. So I think Jamie will definitely be in the squad anyway. And with 3 games, hopefully he'll get a bit of time, a bit more time than maybe he did in the last squad he was in. He's definitely well capable. He's proved that. It's a decent level. He's proven it in, week out. So why not give him an opportunity, particularly against Azerbaijan? Definitely deserves an opportunity in that game. Could definitely find some, especially with fans as well. They'd love it as well, and he could definitely find some space, maybe create a couple of chances for our strikers as well.
Yeah, sorry. Well, you can continue.
No, go on. You go. No, you go.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, just a bit off topic, as you mentioned there, like with the Azerbaijan game and fans, like Jonathan Hill was saying, they are hopeful maybe there could be 25,000 fans back in the Aviva in September. I'm not quite as hopeful, but I definitely think, we're seeing 8,000 are going to be there for Bowes tonight, or could end up being last night by the time this show goes out. So there's no reason why I don't think they could be up into 5 figures. But Jamie is definitely someone as well I have down here as well. Obviously was called up from them Summer Internationals, as we touched on there, an unbelievable season with St. Mirren last year. 17 goals across all competitions, 10 come in the league. I know quite a lot were penalties, but look, they all count. Who gives a damn rat's ass?
Yeah.
As you touched on there, like defensively, there are quite a lot of players in this league, as we touched on. Their defensively, likes Darragh O'Connor, who we talked to last week, Joe Shaughnessy, Conor McCarthy, but we're not short on defenders and good quality defenders playing the Premier League and high level championships. So I just don't see any defenders really getting into the Ireland squad from this league unless we get a severe injury hit, which we definitely do not want. So I think attacking options, they're the main players I've down here that I'd be expecting to get a look in, and Jamie is definitely one of those. As you mentioned, Jason Knight picked up that injury for Derby in pre-season. He's out now for 6 to 8 weeks. He's not going to feature. I think Jamie should be given more of a run out in them games last summer with a bit of a free hit. While we probably don't have much of a chance of qualifying for the World Cup, these are still competitive games. It's still important for world rankings. It's not as much of a chance to experiment. But as you say, maybe the Azerbaijan game could be a good chance to throw him on for 20 minutes, half an hour, or things are going well. Or if it's a case of, again, we get 1 or 2 more injuries over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and Jamie once again hits the ground running with St. Mirren, he could even be pushing his way into the starting team. But we'll wait and we'll see. Another player I have down here as well, it might be nearly as much so for Stephen Kenny's interest, more so for Jim Crawford, is Jonathan Afalambe, the Celtic player. But he's really struggling to get a look in at Celtic at the moment. He's only made the bench the odd couple of times in pre-season matches. I don't even think he got a run out there against Preston with the likes of Barry Coffey, who's now gone on loan to Cork City, did. Luke O'Connell did. Wasn't on the bench for any of their 2 Champions League games against Midtjylland. Obviously now Celtic have dropped down to the Europa League. Was on loan with Dundee in the Scottish Championship last year. Obviously a successful season for Dundee. They got promoted. Not the best of seasons for him. I don't think 4 goals and 22 appearances in all competitions is anywhere near prolific. I don't think it's enough. Celtic will be looking at thinking this fella can make the kind of jump up. He's realistically speaking going to have to be looking at a loan move again this year if he wants regular first team action. Would Dundee be willing to take him back again? The fact that they're now promoted, maybe someone like Ross County, Livingston, I'm thinking kind of these more lower half Scottish Premiership teams, or is he possibly going to jump back down to the Scottish Championship? What do you think yourself?
Well, I don't think Dundee will take him again anyway, simply because they've just brought in Killian Sheridan as well. So that's maybe they've got those positions covered anyway, replacing Afolabi from last year. Maybe a championship side, the likes of Inverness, someone along those lines might pick him up. But the lower half of the Premiership as well. St. Mirren, I think they're okay. I think they just bought Curtis Main up front as well. He's been scoring a couple of goals in the League Cup as well. So maybe not, but look, you never know. Hopefully he gets a chance to play anyway, because that's the main thing is playing at the end of the day and being involved. And as Darragh O'Connor said last week, in the underage competitions, it's very tippy-tappy. So it's not real football at the end of the day. So they need proper games. So hopefully he gets a loan move at least.
Yeah, I think possibly it's a case of if he could get a loan move and get it to a decent standard and starts firing goals and given Ireland's problems of putting the ball in the back under Stephen Kenny, that later down the road at some stage over the course of 9 or 10 months, he could be someone that could force his way into the reckoning.
Yeah, definitely. He'd probably need a bit of form behind him, as you said, though, as well. Like, even you look at the likes of Troy Parrott, he's probably even got Troy Parrott still probably got a bit more form than him, and he's played a few more games as well. So he's got to be looking to get into maybe that level and then going on to the next level as well. Like, maybe Troy's looking for a loan move again this year, or maybe he's going to try break into the Spurs squad under Nuno as well. Who knows? But again, he probably needs to be looking at to get to that level and then go on to the next level first.
Yeah, I suppose, look, time will only tell, but hopefully something will get sorted with Jonathan Afolabi. I know there was a problem before, they're saying the likes of Celtic and these Scottish teams that don't have reserve teams, but I just know I came across it last night that Celtic have a B team playing in the Lowlands League or something like that in Scotland. Like, so it does seem to be a bit reserve team football, but to be brutally honest, even as into under 21 level, I think Jonathan needs to be playing at a much higher standard than that. And the final player I have kind of down here, and it's coming back on Stephen Kenny's radar, is Aaron McEneff. Obviously, he was called up for that Bulgaria game in the Nations League last November, but that was pretty much due to, once again, being hit by injuries and another COVID outbreak in the Ireland squad, what was new back then. He's featured in 3 of Hearts' League Cup games so far this season, but as you touched on there, Paul, earlier, he didn't play against Inverness last Saturday, and it's mainly been substitute appearances so far, but did quite well. He only joined Hearts midway through last season in January. In fact, I don't think the Scottish League actually resumed again, the Scottish Championship, until like March or something like that because of COVID. So he got 13 appearances in towards the end of last season after his move, scored twice. As I kind of touched on there, he has been called up once to the squad. That was because of, probably shortage of players, as I mentioned, through injury and COVID and stuff like that. And chances are, again, unless he really hits the ground running with Hearts, is it probably going to be a similar case again, that unless maybe we have another injury crisis or a health crisis again like that again, that he probably won't be too much on Stephen Kenny's radar.
Sorry, I missed the end of that. I know it's still on Aaron McEneff, but yeah, I agree. I had him
on the right track anyway. So
yeah. I had him on number 2 on mine anyway, and yeah, he needs more game time, like you said. Whether he will be involved with Ireland, I think there's more of a chance now because Jason Knight is out as well. He's probably going to try and stack the midfield because you're missing a very key player there. Jamie McGrath will get in as well, hopefully. But with Aaron McEneff, I think he needs more game time with Hearts. He's well capable. We've seen him a lot with Rovers when he was playing there, and a lot of Rovers fans talk very highly of him. They talk, obviously, losing Jack Byrne was crucial, but Aaron McEneff was very, very similar in their opinion as well. It was crucial that they lost. He was a crucial player for them, and obviously it's shown this year they're not running away with it as much as they did last year anyway. Yeah, he needs more game time with Hearts. It's going to be tough to break into that Hearts side, let's be honest, but if he gets a run of games, he gets a couple of goals, a couple of assists, he'll stay in that side, and then he'll be called up by Stephen Kenny. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's another one of them. We'll have to wait how it sees out. So there, you mentioned you Jamie McGrath earlier. I've mentioned Jonathan Afolabi and Aaron McEneff. They're my 3 players. You mentioned Aaron was number 2 for you. You had Jamie McGrath number 1. Did you have Jonathan number 3, or do you have a different player?
Number 3, I had Jay's Cavia at Livingston. Now, obviously, might be a bit biased because I'm a Shells fan, and I did see a lot of him over the last couple of seasons. Very talented player. He proved it when he went over to Livingston first. A couple of sparks, got a couple of goals, set up a goal on the weekend as well after coming on as a sub. Yeah, he's still very young, but again, if you're looking at the under-21 side, there's definitely an opportunity there. Jim Crawford would be looking at players like Jays, who maybe might not have been involved before, to come in now. Obviously, players are moving on, getting older, so that's just the way it goes. And he's a very talented player, very skillful, can create a lot of chances and gets a lot of goals as well. I actually remember him scoring a header against Pats last year, the 3rd game just before COVID. Scored a header to win the game 1-0 for Shells. Unfortunately, the season they ended up relegated, but look, still a good win at Talca. And I mean, if he's scoring headers as well,
still clearly means a lot to you anyway. So
well, I was there. Sure, you look. I mean, it's Pats. But yeah, look, a very good player, very talented, and will be looked at by Jim Crawford for the under-21s, I would say.
Yeah, I was just actually checking there. I forgot that he was still actually eligible for the under-21s. He's only just gone 21 as of about 21 days ago. So it's all 21 all around. So they're still eligible for that age category. As you mentioned as well, with Livingston, as I mentioned in the start of the segment when I was announcing the fixtures, they're playing Rangers in Ibrox on Saturday. First time there's going to be a crowd back in Scotland in competitive league action since March of last year. It's live on TV. It's a great opportunity for him as well in a hostile atmosphere, but also as well with exposure on TV if he can make a good game of it. Just maybe quickly before we finish up, so maybe just a quick prediction for the Scottish Premiership this season. Obviously, Rangers, an unbelievable season last year. Obviously, a little bit of a kind of, I wouldn't say soft spot, but obviously with Stephen Gerrard and me being a Liverpool fan, I was kind of happy for Gerrard. Obviously, clearly not one bit delighted for Rangers. Like all Irish people have no association whatsoever with that club. But they were unbelievable last season, 100 points. The league wrapped up, I think, about the 7th of March. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, when do you ever see a League One and the clocks haven't even gone forward yet? Like, for me, I don't see anything else other than them. I'm looking at Celtic. They're just a massive transition at the moment. They have a manager who already is under pressure because of last night's results. He was kind of a bit of an unproven manager. Their signings aren't inspiring. Pre-season wasn't inspiring, getting beaten by Preston, getting well beaten by West Ham at the weekend, dropped down to Champions Europa League. I can't see anything other than Rangers winning this league again. I don't think they'll win it as comfortable, because I think maybe if they get in the Champions League, which is going to be their priority, that might maybe take a distraction in the early part of the season. But I still think they could definitely win the league by double digits, somewhere between 10 to 15 points.
Yeah, definitely. They really are the stronger side. You look at Celtic last night. I saw the first leg last week. Even still, they had a great opportunity to go on and maybe just win it in the first leg. Moment of madness by near bit on. And look, I mean, they ended up losing last night after going 1 ahead.
They should have won in normal time last night. Like, James Forrest misses a glorious chance to put them 2-0 up after a cracking goal from Ryan Christie. And then more or less the next attack, Midtjylland go down and score. Like, they even had chances in normal time still to win the game, but then when they went to extra time, they just looked out on their feet, and Midtjylland scored early, and they probably could have had another goal or two towards the end to make it very comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like I'm not criticizing the manager. I don't know much about him, but it doesn't, scream optimism to me either. It's not like previous ones. Even like, I know towards the end with Neil Lennon, it wasn't great, but when he first came in, they were flying as well, and it just doesn't really scream optimism to me. And then some of the signings as well, like, they always seem to be kind of getting players, off the cuff from like Russia, Ruben Kazan, the likes of that. And there's no problem with that. They might be good players, but it's still a gamble all the time. Whereas Rangers are buying players like, Kamar Roof, who's proved it for Leeds and proved it in Belgium for other clubs as well. They just bought John Lundstrom from Sheffield United, who was brilliant the first year Sheffield United were up in the Premier League as well. Like, these are proven players. That's the difference. Buying players, and just the manager as well just doesn't scream optimism to me.
No, and even as well, they've got a couple of exciting young players coming through as Rangers, like Nathan Patterson, I think, who a lot of Scotland fans are calling out. Should have got game time during the Euros. I think he's definitely going to become a regular there as well. Alvarez Morales as well. We know what he can bring when he does keep his cool as well. So, as I mentioned, like, I think Champions League is going to be a priority for Rangers this year. They're on the Champions path, so they are in the supposed slightly easier draw. Now, I do think they actually have a real banana skin against Malmo during the week. But that's where we're going to wrap it up for episode 2 of the Irish Abroad show, where hopefully a lot of them Irish players will be featuring in our weekly roundup next week from the opening week of the Scottish Premiership. And of course, next week, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a good focus and attention on the EFL in England, because it's back next weekend. And obviously, we know there's a lot of Irish interest there, and not just in terms of Irish players, but in terms of who could be featuring in them September internationals.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to that as well. The EFL is a great great 3 divisions, particularly the Championship is always great towards the end, and it'll be an interesting season.
Yeah, certainly should be. And of course, don't be afraid to let us know in the comments as well after the show goes out. Anything else you want, and we'll try and accommodate, and we'll try and squeeze it in as well for next week. But that's all for myself, Gerard Brown.
And me, Paul Tierney. Good luck.
Yeah, that was probably I probably badly set you up there anyway. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll hopefully see you again next week.
Good luck, lads. See you later.